As you continue to write more and more conditional statements, sometimes you might run into code that looks like this. Basically, each one of these conditional statements is checking for a specific value in one variable, and if that's true, then the code inside the if statement will be ran. Just to show you how this works, let's run this code and see what is output back to us. Alright, so because the variable option is set to 3, we get printed back, you selected option 3. So not terribly complicated. Now what if I told you there's another way to achieve the same result without using any conditional statements? Well, in fact, there just so happens to be another way, and that is by using a switch statement. Now a switch statement only works in situations like this, where you have a bunch of chained if statements based on the value of the same variable. Let me rewrite this code using a switch statement, and then I'll explain how it works. I'll keep the conditional statement version here on this side so you can see the difference. Okay, so what I've done is I've wrapped all my code inside of a switch statement. And just like it reads, I want to switch which piece of code is ran based on the variable option. The other thing I've done is I've replaced each if statement with a case clause where the value of the case represents the value the variable option needs to be in order to run the code that is contained underneath it. Basically, if the value of option is, say, 3, when our code reaches the switch statement, it's going to look to see if a case like that exists. If it does, and in this case it does, then it transfers control to that case and continues executing. If it doesn't, then it bypasses the switch statement completely. Just to show you how this works, let's run this code and see what is output back to us. Oh, well look at that. Instead of just printing you selected option 3, we also got option 4, option 5, and option 6. So why is this happening? Well, it's important to understand exactly what is going on when you use a switch statement. Remember, once our code reaches the switch statement, it looks to see if a case for the variable we are switching on exists. If it does, then it transfers control to that case and continues executing. But what it doesn't do is prevent any of the cases below it from not running. This behavior is called falling through. You see, you can think of a switch statement almost like jumping you to a line of code based on the value of a variable. So in this case, option is set to 3, so we jump to the case 3 and then we continue running our code. That's why the other print statements get executed. If you actually want to stop after a case is ran, then you will need to use the keyword break. A break statement can be used to exit our switch statement so that no other cases are ran. If I add break statements to each case and then run this code again, you see that we only get back you selected option 3. Also, technically I don't need the break statement here on the last case because this is the last case in the switch statement. So there's a couple things to take away from this. Switch statements only work in situations where you want to execute statements of code based on the value of some variable. It's just another alternative, and you might see it come up from time to time. Another thing worth mentioning is that you can use a switch statement on any type of data, not just numbers. Also, there are even some scenarios where you might want to leverage the falling through behavior of a switch statement. We'll look at that more closely in the next section.